When I entered this beautiful house at the beginning of April, in order to start my job as new director, the ancient Roman concept of the genius loci came to my mind. When I entered my new office for the first time, I noticed a photo on the wall. It was black and white and from the late 1970s, and showed two respectable and refined gentlemen talking with each other in front of Deutsches Haus. I immediately recognized one of them. It was the then German Chancellor Helmut Schmidt. The other man on the picture with the glasses and the elegant moustache was, as I soon learned, Volkmar Sander, my predecessor, who was clearly showing the Chancellor around his newly founded institution. I soon found out Volkmar Sander's phone number in Wald Amorbach in Germany and called him, and without long introductions, he started talking about Deutsches Haus. Volkmar Sander had founded Deutsches Haus in 1977 because he felt there was a need to provide Americans with a window into contemporary Germany. Volkmar Sander once wrote that he considered himself having had the most beautiful job in America. Today, almost 35 years after the foundation of Deutsches Haus, and half a year after having encountered Volkmar Sander on the phone, I can testify that it is still a very beautiful job. Some of you have come from very far away, just to be here, to share your memories of Volkmar with us. I want to thank one person who could not be here tonight, Volkmar Sander's wife, Margaret, who herself taught for many years at the German department and was deeply involved in the affairs of Deutsches Haus. When Volkmar Sander spoke or wrote about his work here, he never forgot to mention or thank her. I want to dedicate tonight's event to her and to Volkmar, this beautiful, loving, wise and daring couple, to whom Deutsches Haus owes so much. Thank you very much.
It's a privilege for me to be here and to be invited to say a few words of appreciation for Professor Volkmar Sander's very rich contributions to NYU. He envisioned making this university the premier place in the country to display German arts and letters to an American audience. The list of famous German writers who came to NYU at his invitation would make any university or any city green with envy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to add my voice to so many distinguished speakers tonight, honoring Professor Volkmar Sander's achievements with Deutsches Haus. He was one of the great figures in promoting knowledge of the cultures of the German-speaking countries in this great city and beyond. The German government had the good fortune to understand early that here was a man in whom and in whose initiatives to invest was a wise thing to do. Ever since, our cooperation with Deutsches Haus has been close and fruitful, and we look back with immense gratitude to Professor Sander's far-sighted, imaginative, creative, and hugely constructive work. It is worth to remember Volkmar Sander as an outstanding personality. In this sense, I wish Deutsches Haus a splendid future.
Only when people forget someone, he's really dead. It's the case today, certainly with Volkmar Sander. We all know that he will still live in so many hearts and in so many memories. At the time when Volkmar Sander had this vision to really emphasize the importance of the German language, of this amazing cultural heritage. And no doubt that Volkmar Sander not only had the vision, but had also the strength to make it happen and to found this wonderful Deutsches Haus and to become the first director.
It's a great honor and privilege to participate in this moving homage to Professor Volkmar Sander. How much we are pleased and grateful to have the Deutsches Haus at NYU since many years as a Swiss house as well, and how important and valuable this partnership is for us. Many Swiss writers, the most famous of them all among the Swiss, Max Frisch, I heard that he read here at Deutsches Haus, and I want to believe that he certainly had often nice conversations with Professor Volkmar Sander while waiting for Alice Locker-Carey to come out of her German lessons from a classroom here in the back.
I came here in September '87, and Manfred Stassen introduced Volkmar to me at what the three of us very much liked, and we can still see, at a restaurant. I was sort of coming from Europe, and we sat down, and the first round of whiskey sours was served. I thought, lunch, whiskey sour? And then the second last round of whiskey sours came when we decided what we wanted to eat. And after, sort of at the end of the meal, we had 3 whiskey sours, and we had wine and wonderful discussion. And one thing I always sort of admired very much about him, he stated almost sort of with vigor, he said, "I hate healthy things." Grabbed into his pocket, got out a cigarette, and smiled. My second remark would be German studies. We had many, many discussions with Volkmar and with Margaret, and asked, where do German departments still agree that this has something to do with Germany? And yes, literature, but on the other hand, we needed to gather all things German in a university. And when you took all the historians and art historians and what have you, all of a sudden we had 15 to 20 specialists on German. So this was very much also Deutsches Haus. Volkmar was also a great teacher, and he had students that were very, very close to his heart. And he thought about them, he talked to them, he supervised them. Last remark is, Volkmar was a wonderful friend, and we over the years really became very close. We met very often, we had wonderful discussions, and I also have to mention Margaret, who was, if you want, sort of the quality control of Volkmar. Because she has an enormously sharp mind, and if Volkmar was carried away with his vision, she said, "Volkmar, yeah, then think it through," or "Volkmar, you didn't really perform there very well." And I think all the achievements with the Deutsches Haus and all this could not have been done without Margaret, who stayed sort of slightly in the back, but she was very present there, and I know that all the friends and all the teachers know what an enormous positive influence she also had on Volkmar. I really terribly miss him, and this is great to have so many people here who have in one way or the other a positive memory of Volkmar. Thank you.
To create a German house in this city is not evident. The legacy of Germans that resonates particularly with many, many citizens in the city is nefarious and unfortunately was long-lasting. And Volkmar was my guide in that, because Volkmar had a tremendous political sensitivity. And the last word is that this was a vision. Nobody thought that it would ever come to fruition, but Volkmar was tenacious, and he didn't rest until the thing really happened. We are very pleased that he and Margaret could see the fruition, the completion of this great project that is a visible, a tangible tribute to everything else that all my previous speakers here.
I first met Volkmar in the fall of 1963. This dates me, I must say. I was a young instructor of German then. I met him when he joined NYU as associate professor after having taught at Vassar for 5 years. In the early 60s, this was a dream of Volkmar's, a dream that took shape as Deutsches Haus. It is hardly imaginable, given what Deutsches Haus is today, that a relatively short time ago it was but a dream. Through fundraising drive undertaken by him during the years 1966 to 1976. It is no secret that Deutsches Haus has been and is a flourishing institution with a reputation that extends far beyond the confines of NYU. The German department and New York University owe Volkmar Sander a debt of gratitude for his work. But Volkmar made sure that we don't conceive of this debt as an obligation when he said on the occasion of receiving one of the prizes for his work that he, together with his wife Margaret, had the most enjoyable job in the USA, a job that was a reward in itself. And thus we say farewell to Volkmar. Gladly honoring thanks for the memories, and those are no small thing. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, after our very first production, the American premiere of Stella by Goethe, we looked for a home for Elysium Theatre Company. I went to see Professor Volkmar Sander. I immediately felt something special about him. During our conversation, he mentioned that he liked the play The Devil's General by Karl Zuckmayer. This was the beginning of our friendship. He invited me and the Elysium Theatre Company to Deutsches Haus as a theatre in residence. Little did he know what he was in for. Elysium's first production here was Tante Dos on the Chimborazo. And so, for weeks, Volkmar entered his own office through a great forest of trees and rocks, as the whole of Deutsches Haus was turned into a Thuringia forest because of limited storage for our set pieces. Volkmar, I am very thankful that you and Margaret welcomed me into your lives. You became my New York parents, supported and protected my dream Elysium. You made Deutsches Haus a welcoming home for the Elysium Theatre Company for many years. I learned the valuable technique of fundraising from you, and you were very good at this. But the most important thing we all could learn from you was your honesty and support for the dignity of man. Your energy made this house into a very special place. And I thank you and God that I could be part of this place for over 12 years. I miss you, but I'm thankful that you were in my life. And in spirit you will be with me forever. Adieu.
When I entered the PhD program in Germanistic at New York University in the last century, a moral compass seemed to permeate their department at NYU. At the core of Volkmar and Margaret's concerns as Germans of their generation were the relationships of literature and politics, memory and democracy. It seemed like we were at the pulse of this world divide, observing it, reading and discussing literature from West and East, investigating the slogan, "Dare More Democracy," and relating this all to our own American culture. I will remember Volkmar Sander during his years at NYU for embracing the grand ethical questions of his generation, from his urgent academic engagement with humanism, his belief in enlightenment and democracy, trotz alledem. He was smart, self-confident, and yet self-critical, a person who made things happen. He was reliable, worked hard, and held himself and his colleagues to very high standards. Generous, ironic, and never far from a laugh. Despite the heavy burden he bore as a German of his generation, there was also this lightness about him, and despite all he had to do, he always seemed to have time for people. At NYU, in the German department in Deutsches Haus, Volkmar and Margaret gathered around them colleagues and students with a similar love of language and literature and democracy, and he gave them a place to do meaningful work. And I know Volkmar has affected many lives as profoundly as he has mine. Thank you.
Volkmar was a crusty old continental and tough to figure out for a younger American. When I met him in 1982, he was at first a puzzle to me. Over the intervening 29 years, when I worked with him, studied under him, translated for him, and ultimately was befriended by him, I encountered many, many people who, loving him or no, had their Volkmar theory, had their Volkmar opinion. Whatever that opinion was, the man brought it on himself. He evoked reaction. To quote him in this vein from a speech in 1995, at a time when only half of Americans had ever even visited a website, he said, "Cable news and the coming internet are not only technological innovations, but above all sociological phenomena, which alter our behaviors, our perceptions, our ways of seeing. Speed replaces content, access replaces ownership." Access replaces ownership. Pretty good for 1995. In looking back on his time with us, Volkmar had this to say: "I maintain to this day," and you might hear a bit of a leitmotif here, "I maintain to this day that my wife and I had the best jobs in America." Die schönsten Jobs, nicht? Die schönsten Jobs in America. 1 part research, 1 part teaching, a little administration, and a lot of public sphere development. In this most enervating, most energizing of cities, the city that never sleeps. Volkmar, sleep easy. Your influence does anything but.
Volkmar Sander was also a musician and a great pianist, and when I talked to Margaret Sander and asked her about Volkmar Sander's favorite composer, she said it was Ludwig van Beethoven, of course.